Hey guys, what's up? Braden here. Just wanted to show you something that I'm pretty excited about. I've been working on this the last week or so, and it worked. Got it back together and it worked. A few years ago, I picked up the McWill screen mod for the Game Gear, and so this project has been a few years in the waiting. Only took a couple evenings, but I've, to be honest, just been a little intimidated looking at everything that it was involved with it. And since I'm more or less a beginner, I'm handy, but I'm not anywhere experienced with small electronics. But I finally took it on, took a couple evenings, and here we are. This was designed and produced, I guess, from a guy in Germany, and he's done a few of these, I think, for these old handhelds. And it's a really, really cool mod. And what you're seeing right now on the bottom is the new screen, the McWill LCD mod, and the top one is a completely original Game Gear. Now, you'll obviously notice right away that it's just 100 times better. It's actually really hard to see how good it is. It looks amazing in person. So you have bright colors, deep blacks, whites look white, blacks look black, versus kind of a milky gray everything with the original. So pretty cool seeing side by side just how much better it is. Just want to show you a little closer up just so you can really see the detail between the two. Here's the original screen again, and just straight up, I didn't even know that was supposed to be blue at the very beginning. At least it comes across as blue on the new screen. So now we have obviously barely any color saturation at all. It's just pretty milky all around. The flicker there, just so you know, that isn't actually on the screen in person. That's just how the camera captured it, because it uses a fluorescent tube. The frequency was a little off. So it's not flickering in real life, but it is that washed out gray, look. And you can make it brighter, but that just makes it more washed out. So on the original screen, so it's not great. You can kind of move it around to try to find the right angle, but it's just not a great experience overall when you're just trying to barely be able to see what you're doing on the screen. So not so fun in that regard. But, that's what it was. We didn't know any different growing up. This was maybe a little better when we were, younger, when it wasn't quite so old. You could try replacing the capacitors and whatnot, but you're not really going to get that much better of an experience by doing that. But if the sound or video isn't working on your Game Gear, you can replace the capacitors, and generally that'll get it working again, which is nice. But now let's take a sweet look at the brand new screen. It's 100 times better, especially in person. It's really hard to tell. It looks, it probably looks okay here on the camera, comparing the two, but it looks amazing in person. Just super bright, sharp for the resolution, and everything's just clear as can be. So it's nice. I always loved the Game Gears that they were colored compared to the Game Boys growing up that were all black and white and no backlight and all of that. But this just blows it out of the water. So totally worth the effort and time it took to go through and do this project. One of the things that isn't coming across in the camera is the color. It's actually a lot more saturated in person. The blues are more of like a Superman blue. The reds are red, they're that just solid primary colors. Everything's kind of on point in person. I haven't been able to really get that to come across in the video here, but just really nice. At this point, if you want to use the original, an original Game Gear, if you can find one that works, is the trick right now, because the capacitors blow out. But you can always recap it, and it usually works at that point. But if you want to use it, you can use it indoors. If you're outside in the sun, any bright lights like that where it's going to be on the screen, you're pretty much out of luck. You're not going to see anything with that super washed out screen. So if you want to be able to play your Game Gear anywhere and just have it be a really nice experience, this is the way to go. So real quick, let's take a look at the actual project side of things, what it takes to do this. Here's two ASCI 1 model Game Gears. There's an ASCI 2 model, a little different, but this particular one is the one I have here. The mod works with the other one, so it doesn't matter. But this is the 1 generation. And here's the main PCB out of the Game Gear. And at this point, the instructions have you pull off a lot of components, various capacitors and different things that you're not going to need anymore that aren't involved in the final project. This is the original LCD. That was the back, and this is the front. It used a lamp of some kind, I think a fluorescent lamp, and that shone a light through to make that, but it just wasn't a great solution. Here is, I've taken the LCD out, as well as a number of the other components. A lot of the components are really small. A couple of them you have to reuse, so just be careful as you're going through taking out these tiny, they call them thin film capacitors and things like that. Here's the thing completely stripped of all of the old components that we're not going to need anymore. And then this particular part right here, those two yellowish orange things, are capacitors, and it included 2 in the kit, but I lost one of them and broke another one because they're just so tiny. So I had to actually order another set of capacitors and wait until they got here, and then it was the same type of, same use, I guess, but a different type of capacitor, but it worked just fine. Once you finish taking off all of the components and switching a few other things around, making some bridges, they have you actually do a test of the power system, just the positive and ground, to make sure that it's under 5.45 volts. So we're just fine here. We had a stable 4.997, and that means everything's good, because you don't want to fry your brand new LCD. But everything checked out good from the modifications, and we're ready to reinstall everything. But one other thing I did was I also recapped the soundboard and the power board. Just while I was in there, they were working, but you know, might as well, while you're there, make sure that everything's nice and fresh and working good. They actually make, or not make, I guess, there's tons of people on eBay or Amazon or otherwise that put together these capacitor sets, and you can do a whole Game Gear, I don't know, you know, 10 to 20 bucks depending on the kit you find, and it has everything you need, and you just go through and take off the old ones, put the new ones on, and you're usually good to go at that point. So here's the new LCD. It's actually a really nice unit. Like, it's designed really well, made well, as far as I can see, and the whole thing is just designed to fit the Game Gear like a glove. So it actually slides, the Game Gear PCB slides between the PCB of the new unit, the mod, and the LCD of the new unit. And then it lines right up with these little gold tabs, or whatever you want to call them. And that's where you solder together. You're going to want to line it up in the case and make sure the screen's where you want it, but then you can put some big globs of solder on, there's 4 points there, to kind of anchor it into place while you're doing all of the rest of your work. And then you start with power and ground on the Game Gear, and that goes to the mod, the back of the mod on the PCB. So all fairly straightforward there. Some basic small wiring to a number of different points on the new PCB and the old one. But it's very specific, so you just follow the instructions, and you should be pretty much good to go. Just make sure that you're being very exact and that all of your solders are clean and you're not bridging anything you shouldn't be, and, you know, basic stuff. Here's the real fun, quote unquote, sarcasm. There's this leftover little line of pins, and before it was just kind of a film, a tape for the old LCD, and that just went right on. But you peel that off, and you're left with these tiny, tiny, tiny little pins that are super annoying. And you have 6 different wires you actually have to wire to individual pins on this strip. And this is the part that was scary for me. But I went through, I did it. It helps a lot if you clean up the area first using some like solder wick or something. And then go to, as you get to each pin that you're doing to wire on, put the soldering gun on there, put some solder on, just pre-solder that just lightly, just so there's something there for it to grab onto. And then the wire that you put on there, just pre-soldered that as well. And then this whole project, tweezers are going to be your very, very, very best friend, because there's so many little pieces and parts. But you can just grab some tweezers to hold the wire straight, put it on that little pin, just soften enough with the solder, and then pull the solder gun away, and that should harden up enough to grab onto it. And so just take your time, be clean up any extra with some solder wick if it gets on anything around it. But it wasn't too painful, it just took a little bit of time. And here was right after I finished putting all of the wires, everything that needed to be where it needed to be. So I was crossing my fingers at this point, saying, please work, please work, please work, please work, please work. And it worked. That little red line, the line across the screen and the bubble, that's just the screen protector still on the LCD. I haven't taken that off yet. But holy cow, we turned it on and it worked. This cell phone video is a little washed out. It's not like that in person, but yeah, it worked. The controls worked, the sound worked, everything worked when I got it back together. And at this point, I was pretty much just doing a little happy dance. Because, it was a lot of little things, and it was my first big, small electronics project. And I was just super excited it worked, so I just wanted to share what I found. And totally worth it if this is a mod you want to try out. If you have a Game Gear at all and you want to actually play it, I can't imagine going back or doing, using something that doesn't have this mod after this, because it's just night and day difference. So totally recommend it for anybody who may want to take on this project, or knows someone who, or has a Game Gear and knows somebody or a business or somebody to do the mod for you. Either way, it's just 100 times better. So totally worth it. If you do want to get this mod though, I will put the email address here up on the screen and down in the description of the video. And you can email this guy. I think he actually does sell them through some storefronts now. But when I got mine, you have to email him directly and then PayPal or something, pay him and he'll ship it back out to you from Germany. So, and one last thing, I actually replaced the lens on the Game Gear. Just off of eBay, there's a whole bunch of them, really cheap. I got a pack of 2 because I'm going to be doing another Game Gear as a Raspberry Pi project. But looks really nice. It's a little different. It's flatter instead of kind of the more rounded to the edges, but it worked good, looks good. That's how you do it. That's how it went for me. Everything really pretty painless, other than losing those capacitors and having to wait a week. But once I got it, it was not too bad, to be honest, putting it together. It's just a lot of little steps, so you have to be careful, piece at a time. So thanks guys for taking the time to watch. Get out there, enjoy, have some fun. See you later. Bye.